It's the closest, the fastest, the most competitive racing in the world. And they're going to go 3 wide at the line. The Indy Racing League opened its season in Miami right where it left off last year. Side by side at 200 miles an hour, on the edge and over. First it was Roger Penske's cars against the field. Castro Nebraska go low on Weldon to make it 3 wide in the turn of victory. Then between one another, Ohio's Sam Hornish won the first round. Hornish has done it. Round 2 site was Phoenix International Raceway, where Tony Kanaan dominated. The field played catch-up all day. The IRL now moved to Japan and the twin-ring Motegi. Then it's on to the greatest spectacle in racing and the 88th running of the Indianapolis 500. But today it's Japan, the twin-ring Motegi, the Firestone Indy Japan 300, and we've got a lot to set up before the start of this race, which of course is the last one before we run the Indy 500. There is the twin ring north of Tokyo, about 56 miles. Tokyo, you land at the airport in Narita just north of there, and then it's a short drive, really about an hour and a half, up to the twin ring Motegi, which is a tribute to Honda. They built it to memorialize all of their magnificent racing over the years. Let's take a look at this multi-purpose facility. Today, we use the oval.
Oh, what a great race facility this track is. A superb, smooth track, 80 feet wide. The drivers love it, but there's a problem area you see down the far end, the turn 3-4 segment. Very tight radius turn. Now watch, 1.5-mile oval. Very equal straights front and rear, 80 feet width that we talked about, great for passing, not much banking on the straights or in the turns, only 10 degrees. Wind is always a factor here down in this tight area, turns 3 and 4.
And as you suggested, there's been trouble down here. Takagi, Dixon, Scheckter, and Hornish all into the wall during practice. Nobody's really sure what was doing it. Look how fast Dixon loses it.
Whenever that happens, Paul, you're just a passenger.
Injury to his left foot, slight break. Thomas Scheckter, same sort of situation.
Same attitude of the car, same spot as you mentioned, Paul. Again, just along for the ride.
Now, Tora Takagi, this was a big hit, solidly at the back of the car. And there was a question whether or not he'd be able to run today.
Watch this, the car impacts straight back, not much absorption of energy with that crash.
But finally, Dr. Henry Bach, the medical director, said he can race. And Sam Hornish, so uncharacteristic.
Said it was only his fault, got the car high, pushed right up into the wall.
Let's go to Jackaroo.
You're looking at the last 3 IRL IndyCar Series champions here. Sam Hornish Jr. with 2 and Scott Dixon, the defending champion. But I want to go back 1 year ago, Scott. A bad crash here that left you wounded. Now we come back and another crash, and again you're wounded, this time with your left ankle just a little bit. How's it going to affect the way you drive today?
I think it'll be fun. You know, I think maybe you look at this race a little different going into the month of May. You know, last year we struggled getting enough time in the car, you know, because of the injury, but, you know, you still got to come here and race to win, and I think that's pretty much what Team Target does, and, you know, I think we have a good starting position today and should have a good shot at it.
Sam Hornish, uncharacteristically in qualifying mid-pack, but in the last practice session, you and Marlboro Team Penske got quick. What did you do?
I mean, we've pretty much worked on this weekend and what we work on every weekend, that's qualifying. And, you know, I mean, on the race setup, we didn't do too much on qualifying. Just kind of an off run for us, but we know we got a pretty fast race car, so we'll do our best today, try to stay out of trouble and work our way up there.
And do keep an eye on both Hornish and Castroneves. In the 6 previous races here, Ford and Toyota have scored the victory. Honda, at their own track, has never had a win. It's very important to them today. Let's take you back to the start of the season. The first race at Homestead, Miami, and a new teammate for Helio Castroneves in the person of Sam Hornish. The closing lap, Dan Weldon was leading, and the Penske cars went high and low and took first and second. And then on the last lap, Sam Hornish made his move and edged out his teammate in the first win for his new team. Then at Miami, there have been some changes to the track. Turn 2, they've opened it up and put a tunnel under turn 4. Dan Weldon took the pole. But when the race began, it was all up to his teammate, Tony Kanaan, at the end of lap 1. Kanaan took the lead and motored right on to the win. And since then, Tony Kanaan has been in a half triathlon. Didn't do as well as he would have hoped. Jack Arute?
Tony Kanaan knows just how treacherous this racetrack can be. This is the scar that he got from the broken wrist. He had an accident 1 year ago, but that was then and this is now. You start third behind your teammate Dan Weldon. Can you beat him?
We'll see. I mean, Dan has a good car. He did a great job in qualifying yesterday. I think I'm going to try for sure, but the most important thing is to get this win for Honda. And if one of my teammates, the whole Andretti Green, it's working for this, and if he wins, I'm happy. If I win, I'm happy. And let's cheer up to get all the 4 cars up there, and we'll see what's going to happen.
Now, it was an all-Honda front row at Phoenix, and this guy pulled a TK move on you, Dan Weldon. What about this time? He's behind you instead of outside of you.
You never know with TK. I think he's one of the best in the world, as is Dario and Brian. We've got some quality drivers in this team, and it's great to be part of it. But like TK said, we've got 4 cars that could possibly win this race, and we need to win it for Honda, so that's what we're aiming for. But certainly the Klein Tools Jim Beam car is very strong.
What about the track conditions? The wind has been an issue, and the groove has been an issue. It's not seemingly as wide as it has been in years past.
Well, I don't really worry about the track conditions. I worry about the TK conditions because he pushes hard. So, you know, it seems like this is one of the, I think, the best temperatures we've ever had race day here, TK was telling me. And, you know, it is one line, but I think that will get a little bit bigger as we kind of complete more laps.
2 of the drivers looking for success for Andretti Green Racing, and Tony Kanaan certainly has it at the moment, leading the points fight. Weldon sitting down there in 3rd. And this, of course, after 2 of the 16 races. Motegi is round 3. Let's send you back now to Jack Arute.
You've got to go back to 2001 to see the type of strength that this man, Greg Ray, has exhibited this time around in Motegi, Japan. Your Renovac Honda on the outside of the front row. What's the difference now, just 12 months since you started this team?
Well, I mean, it's ironic, Jack, that, you know, it was all the way back to 2001 since we've been on the front row. But really, it's just building momentum and rhythm with the team and that great Honda power. You know, Honda's given us great engines ever since we've started. We've never had any issues whatsoever with the power plant. It looks like we got really big power this weekend. So the car was great all weekend long, and I think we got a good car for the race today.
Do you lead the first lap?
You know, I don't have that crystal ball. I wish I did. If we had that crystal ball, I think I'd just tell you we'd win the race. But it's a tough day. It's a lot like a big version of Phoenix. It's a very compromising racetrack, and, you know, that first lap really doesn't matter. We like to get a good start, but it's the last lap that counts.
Well, Greg Ray, along with a lot of his IndyCar Series drivers, headed out for a little tourism while in Japan. First, it was bowling. Dario Franchitti there. There's Weldon. And no, not very good, was it? But if you're going to Japan, then why not find some of the real culture? Kendo, sword fighting. Thomas Schechter and Ed Carpenter didn't look quite as good as the little kids. And, of course, you can always go shopping. Well, that concludes our Firestone pre-race show. When we come back, we'll have some interesting numbers for you and the start of the traditional Japanese ceremonies at the Twin Ring. The IRL IndyCar Series round number 3 from Motegi, Japan, the Firestone Indy Japan 300. And Jamie Little is part of a party that Eddie Gossage and the gang at Texas Motor Speedway put together to watch the race tonight. Jamie, what's up?
Paul, I'll tell you what, we are having a blast. It's all race fans of all different sizes. We've got kids, we've got adults, all here to watch the racing action tonight. Hey, it's the side of the Bombardier 500 coming up on June 12th. It's absolutely beautiful. We've got great food, drinks. We've even got door prizes. We're giving away a trip to Cancun. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be here all night, so you guys be sure to check back with us.
Jamie, we are ready. They're ready. The engines are started. And the field's rolling. Here's the way they'll line up on the pole is Dan Weldon, the second in a row for the likable Brit, and Greg Ray, his first front row start in 3 years. In row 2, Tony Kanaan, TK, the Phoenix winner. And Kosuke Matsura, the best start for the leader of the rookie points. In the 3rd row, Buddy Rice, the pole winner in Miami. And the defending series champion, Scott Dixon, who crashed in practice. Sam Hornish, two-time IndyCar Series champion and the Miami winner. And Vitor Meira with his first race this year. Dario Franchitti. And Darren Manning with miles of experience in Motegi, but none on the oval. Brian Herta, fourth time racing at the Twin Ring. And Scott Sharp, who is the defending race champion. Roger Yasukawa, it's his first start this year. And Mark Taylor, the Menards Infinity Pro Series champion. Helio Castroneves, he never seems to do well here in Japan. And Thomas Scheckter, who crashed in the practice. A.J. Foyt IV. And Adrian Fernandez, who is a two-time winner at the Twin Ring Motegi. Ed Carpenter on his first start in Japan, and alongside Robbie Buell, who finished 10th here last year. And in the last row, Tora Takagi. He's back there after that heavy crash in practice. And Alex Barron changed an engine and had to move to the last spot. So 1.5 miles around this track, 200 laps, 300 miles. They're going through turns 3 and 4 and ready for the start. 4 pit stops. That's probably what you're going to see, and the weather is absolutely beautiful. Front row, Weldon and Ray.
This 80-foot wide racetrack, watch for passing in turn 1.
And they give him the green. Weldon gets a great advance on the start, though. Green to Weldon, and Tony Kanaan drops into second place. First time down the backstretch. Both of the Target Chip Ganassi cars going at one another. Oh, look at Scheckter get way high.
Out of that black groove, Paul, up into that gray area. You don't want to spend too much time up there.
You ride with Scheckter. That's Adrian Fernandez, two-time winner here during the kart days.
See, Scheckter in the yellow car right now is already pushing that high line. This track is up on the top of a mountain ridge. There's always wind. We have some problems in turns 3 and 4 with guys getting caught by the wind and crashing. You have to make sure you get the track worked in, get some rubber down the racetrack before you push the high line.
Well, they get very close together. That green and black car is Vitor Meira, his first time in a car this season. Scheckter takes a look to the inside, tries to get alongside of Helio Castroneves.
He's thought better now. He's trying on the low side, down by the white line, down the turns. That's where all the rubber is from the guys driving the groove, as we call it. As the race continues, then they'll start to move that groove a little bit higher up into the racetrack, up into this gray area here. Watch for the black to continue up to that area.
This is the 4th race that Weldon has led in his career, 2nd this year. He also led 14 laps at Homestead. The 55 car is Matsura. Started 4th, still 4th. It's got Rice, Hornish, Franchitti all right behind him. There's the front. Let's go to Jack Arute.
We'll call for Vitor Meira. He has now been assigned as part of the Bobby Rahal operation. The team received their chassis just 3 days before they were supposed to lock and load to transport to Japan. They pulled some all-nighters, painted the car up, and they've been here with Vitor at the controls since they unloaded in Narita.
Red and blue 17, that is Meira.
A very talented young driver. What a guy. He's come to this series from a different country, has done a great job. Every time he sat in the car, has always been very fast, very fit, and a very dedicated and focused driver, Paul.
Another driver making his first appearance this season. We mentioned him earlier, the green and black number 16 car, Roger Yasukawa, Honda Power.
How tough is that to come over here, almost in your home country to a point, and race in front of the hometown crowd, and you haven't been in a car for quite a few months? That's a lot of pressure.
Sam Hornish, the number 6 Penske car. Rice just ahead of him, Franchitti behind him. Whoa, look at this move. Taylor going around the defending race champion, Scott Sharp.
And very convincingly. Now watch Scott Sharp's hands when we drive. That will tell you how his car is working. If he's nice and smooth, he's happy with the handling of the car. You can see him working the gear shifter over on the right-hand side here. Because of this egg-shaped racetrack, the guys are ending up shifting gears going into one turn and coming out of the other.
Back at the front, it's Dan Weldon. This race so important for Honda. Honda occupying the top 5 positions, and little added pressure on Honda. Besides wanting to win the first time at their own track, they have never won back-to-back races in the IRL, and of course they won at Phoenix. Can they do it here, Jack Arute?
Well, Paul, each engine manufacturer is allowed by the Indy Racing League 3 engine tests a year. Toyota and Chevrolet have reserved theirs for after the 3-liter engine is introduced at the Indianapolis 500. Honda, on the other hand, has already used one of their manufacturer's tests up. Immediately following Phoenix, they took an engine that will be a dinosaur after this race, the 3.5-liter engine, and tested it yet again at Phoenix. I think you can see the results and the commitment that Honda has to saving face and finally winning at their own track.
Well, very important for them. Maybe the single most important endeavor of this year, and Honda led 85 of the 200 laps last year. Kanan led 70 and Kenny Breck led 15. Can they win this year? Right now with Thomas Scheckter, who's sitting well back. He has been right from the start. Not a great qualifying with his incident, and that's Helio Castroneves just in front of him. You're looking at 16th and 17th position. Dan Weldon is still the leader, followed by Kanan Ray and Buddy Rice. Dario Franchitti has now moved up to 6th, and that makes it Honda's running the top 6 right now. Cars on the move. Franchitti, we mentioned him, getting up there in 6th place. Fernandez, keep an eye on this guy. And Takagi, of course, started way in the back.
Riding along with Scheckter right now. He thought he had a good race car, thought that he'd be able to move up quickly on the start. We saw him trying to make a few moves, but could not actually get it done. So right now he's got to settle in, come up with a pace, and just sort of start to work with the car to see what he's got and work on it during pit stops to make it better.
Mile-and-a-half track, and they're turning laps at about 198 miles an hour. Scheckter continues to work at high exit to the corners.
Well, maybe the car's pushing on him, Paul, which means he's turning the steering wheel and the car's not turning for him. It wants to push the front of the car out towards the wall. So possibly right now he's sitting there and being patient, which is a smart thing to do, and maybe make those changes in the pit stop to help the car.
Boy, look at this as the attack now coming from Buddy Rice on Greg Ray. And Rice just comes right down inside of that red, white, and blue car of Ray and picks up 3rd.
Very convincingly, just able to drive it hard down into the turn, carry the momentum, and carry the speed all the way out of the turn. That's a very nice move.
We were riding for a moment with Thomas Scheckter. He's still back at 17th place, chasing Castroneves, and least we forget, he's had 2 incidents with a wall here at Motegi. One in practice, and then one a year ago. He led 36 laps last year, but then on the 168th lap, he got into the wall, and that ended his day. 55 car is Matsura. Well, I can't tell you the reports on how happy he is to be running this race and in front of the Japanese crowd. Though he lives now in Indianapolis, Indiana, while he tries to extend his IRL career. Greg Ray is dropping back, Jack Arute, now 4th.
No cause for concern, though, from the Renovac pits. I talked to his crew chief. He explained to me that their goal, as Greg told us in the pre-race, is to be there at the end of this race. They feel as if they can stay in the top 5. They'll make some minor adjustments on their first pit stop, but right now they are content to let some of the rabbits go out and lead this chase.
And we should be about halfway to the first pit stop. Expected to come 44th, 45th lap, and of course we're working the 22nd lap now with the Klein Tools number 26 of Dan Weldon, pole sitter, still out in front and out by a little over a second now.
That's a great feeling when you get and you start to travel to different countries. You try to settle in. Remember, these guys had a long flight over. You know, it's obviously 11 or 12 o'clock in most parts of the United States right now, and these guys all live over here, so a big difference in travel, and I've lived it myself. You have to adjust to their time zone, and then you have to go out there and perform at your best at going 200 miles an hour.
That was Buddy Rice getting around Robbie Buell as already they start to work through traffic. And there's Weldon on point, Jackaroo.
You know, Dan Weldon has been subjected to all of the practical jokes by his teammates. It did not end when he got here to Japan. They have gone the gamut from trashing his room at the hotel to filling his driving shoes with cream and sugar. There has been threats of retaliation from Weldon, though, so stay tuned. At the Indy 500, we could see the lion-hearted one battling back.
A.J. Foyt, the fourth, the 14 Conseco car slowing down. You got a glimpse of him in the corners. He was down under the line, and now it looks like he's just trying to get around to the pits as the field strings past. Yeah, for Weldon, the best revenge would just be a pole and a win at the Indianapolis 500, the 88th running, and coming up at the end of May on the Memorial Day weekend. Weldon, Kanaan, Rice, Ray, Matsura. Those are the top five, and they're all Honda. We'll be back right after this. Is driving the wheels off of his car, now up to 8th. He challenged Sam Hornish while we were away. Take a look at this as he moved to the inside and picked up 8th just that quick.
Nice move, catching a draft from the car in front down the front stretch and making a nice smooth move on the inside.
The front remains the same. Top 6 are all Hondas. Dan Weldon out in front. Hornish now has to contend, by the way, with Darren Manning, who's closing up on him as well. And you can see the interval as Weldon works his way through traffic from Weldon back to Tony Kanaan with 32 laps complete. We're working 33. Kanaan's closed up about 2/10.
His 19th IndyCar start for Weldon. Remember, he subbed here for Dario back in 2003 when Dario had his motorcycle accident and fractured his back. 2003 Bombardier Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to win a lot of races this year, Paul.
The IRL IndyCar Series racing in close quarters. Vitor Mira, you watch him right there, has been charging up through this pack, now trying to get around Dixon, and in fact gets around Dixon and Franchitti. Look at this as the Target Chip Ganassi cars go side by side. It's kind of racing we've seen right from the start. We're 34 laps into the race and about 10 laps away from the first pit stop.
Paul, just listen to him work with the shifter right there, on and off the throttle. Two teammate cars, obviously Manning's is hooked up and handling. His foot's on the gas, going through the turns, probably 20 miles an hour faster than Dixon right now. Remember, Dixon driving with that slight fracture in the left ankle. He says, you know, it doesn't bother me, but I got to tell you, when you hit a wall, you always like to just complete the weekend, get away from the racetrack, and start fresh the next weekend. I would say he's probably not 110%.
And while this track is very smooth, Ed Carpenter in. So this will be the first of the regular stops. While this track is very smooth, Scott, you've got a lot of vibration going on there that can't be helpful. Now, we saw A.J. Foyt, the fourth, come into the pits. He's also gone back out. Jack Arud, what's his story?
Well, I guess you could call it electrical issues, Paul. They came in and they were complaining of zero fuel pressure. They changed several of the electronic boxes. The fuel pressure returned. They sent him back out. It gets him out of sequence, however, because pit stops, as you said, are underway. Look on lap 43 for your leader to pit for service.
Robbie Buell, who has been struggling, is already 2 laps down. Look at the Delphi pit timing for Buell.
No harm in him coming in early, Paul. When the car's not working and you're going to go down a lap to the leaders, you might as well come in, make some adjustments with the car, and get some fresh Firestone tires on it, and hopefully it will handle better for you.
It looked too like they were counting on the tires. I didn't notice any exaggerated moves to change any of the aero on the car.
No, a lot of times handling changes can come from tire pressure adjustments, which are made in the pits before the tires go on the car.
Dario Franchitti, we have a report, may be having a problem, has come off the pace and then picked it back up, so we'll keep an eye on Franchitti for you as well.
You know, he said he was very disappointed with qualifying. He ran better in practice, felt that he'd actually be able to go a little quicker, but the car's a little loose in turns 3 and 4, where everybody's had those problems this weekend.
Well, this is interesting. Franchitti turned a lap in the mid-170s, and then on the last lap dropped up to 194 miles an hour. Leaders, Weldon just ran a lap at 198. He's been as fast as 201. Fastest lap in the race, 201.1. And Tony Kanaan and Buddy Rice, who are second and third, have been running laps over 200 for the last several laps as the cars get lighter.
Now remember, Paul, these cars are different aerodynamically than they were when they were here last year. There has been a reduction in downforce with these cars to try and make them a little bit more even for all the drivers.
This really only needs to be singular. Yamaha lap leader has been Weldon.
Very impressive job he's done. Obviously, he's enjoying the handling. He's got the mechanical end of that car working very well in combination with the aero.
He just overhauled the number 12 car, the Panasonic car, Tora Takagi. And I know you're thinking that that hit was awfully big in practice for Takagi.
Absolutely. Anytime the car goes directly into the wall like that and does not have the energy absorbed by having the suspension, the wheel, the tire hit the wall first and absorb some of the energy, when you get a direct hit like that, and I've lived it, I'll tell you what, it really puts a shock through your system. And he looked a little dazed, I would say, when he was getting out of the car. 3 wide, going into 1.
And Foyt the fourth in the middle of all that. He'd been running laps at 176 miles an hour. Look at the rest of the field stack up behind him, and that gave Kanaan a chance to just close right down.
Weldon was lucky with that, though, Paul. Watch how close they're getting here. And what ends up happening is you get that dirty air from the car in front. These guys will have the cars slow down in the turns with that less downforce they get. But Weldon was very fortunate that he didn't get pushed more below that white line from Foyt the lap previous.
Roger Yasukawa realized they were there and finally let the leaders come on through. Ray was quickest last time around at 197 miles an hour.
You have to be impressed with Greg Ray, an owner-driver in this series. Only has 1 car, came here, looked like he was going to be on the pole for most of the day until he got nipped at the end by Weldon. Some of his crew are actually part-time, and got to give credit to he and the complete team. They've done a great job here in Motegi.
Well, and certainly at the party that Jamie Little is at, as Matsura makes his stop just as we expected on the 45th lap, but you can bet at Texas Motor Speedway they are pulling for Greg Ray, hometown track.
Here's the pressure for the driver. He's sitting in the car, keeping your foot on the brakes, allowing the drivers to do all the work on the car. Right now, there's some wing changes going there on the front. A nice clean stop.
Saw Schechter come in. Let's go to Jack.
Paul, Greg Ray was one of the teams that came with a reduced number of crew members. In fact, they're allocated so many tickets per team. They didn't have enough crew members to fill the number of tickets. They will be working understaffed here when they make their first pit stop. In the meantime, the leader of this race, the Jim Beam Flying Tools team from Andretti Green Racing, ready to come in and hot on his tail, will be your second place car, Tony Kanaan. They are in pits 1 and 2 here. Let's watch this, as it will be Kanaan that will make the move first.
Kanaan on the pit road, turns in. Hornish goes by, heading out. Boy, look at that great service by Andretti Green Racing. Tony Kanaan making his stop on lap 47, and here comes your leader, Dan Weldon. He's led from the start, from the pole. Jackaroo.
Paul, a quick last-minute move, knowing that Kanaan was going to pit and seeing the pit in front of Dan Weldon filled. They decided to go 1 extra lap. They're telling me that they got the full load, and the last words to the driver, remember, stay focused.
Weldon comes back out, and that should give the lead over to Darren Manning of the Target Chip Ganassi team, and will also mean that Toyota is showing at the top of the scoreboard for the first time today. How will Honda respond? I would guess it'll be with a lot of power. At the Twin Ring Motegi, still under green. It was a nice, clean start. Dan Weldon picked up the lead and began to drive away from teammate Tony Kanaan. On lap 7, Mark Taylor got himself a nice little pass on defending race champion Scott Sharp. And Buddy Rice, boy, look at this as he went for Greg Ray. And on the 26th lap, Vitor Mira, his first ride of the year, takes on Sam Hornet and dusts him off. Darren Manning fights his teammate Scott Dixon. Little fight there in the Target Chip Ganassi team. So with all of the stops complete, Dan Weldon has reassumed the lead. Honda's in the top 3 position. Weldon, Kanaan, and Rice. And that's Buddy Rice right there. Darren Manning, the number 10 car, red and white Target Chip Ganassi Toyota Power, is sitting in 4th. And Matsura is still hanging on strong in 5th place.
Very impressive run. They said that he was getting better each session he went through, working with the engineer and also having Adrian Fernandez helping him. So we watch Greg Ray coming into the pits. He already has been once into the pits.
Ray, who started so well, has had some problems. Take a look at this, Scott.
Rice is down on the bottom, just squeaking between the white line and just shoves Greg Ray up, moves Greg Ray up into the gray area. So right now what they're looking for is suspension damage on the car because Greg has been back out after a tire change and the car's probably not working well for him.
We saw him tugging on the right rear. They'd look hard at the left rear because that looks like where there may have been some contact with Rice. Hasn't affected Rice, though, during the last lap at 195.6 miles an hour. So the IndyCar Series is fast at the Twin Ring Motegi in Japan.
Oh, see how close to the wall Dixon is right there. Getting a little bit of that dirty air, I'm sure. Off of Hornish just in front of him, lightens up the car in the turn and probably makes the car slide out from him. You know, he's got his foot in the gas when he's pushing that hard.
The weight of a full fuel load, 30 gallons of fuel, is taking about 5 miles an hour off of their lap average. Let's go back and take a look, because that was so close to the wall.
Watch this, right up out of the black into the gray, and the right rear just gets close to the wall. Doesn't touch, but creates a bit of a dust storm along the way.
That's what Bobby Unser used to call an almost crash.
At these speeds, sometimes, Paul, I think we always felt that it's almost crashing just about every turn.
Been green right from the start. No caution. We're working lap 59. Weldon has been the dominant power, just like his teammate Tony Kanaan was in the last race at Phoenix. Kanaan second. Buddy Rice giving his car a good ride, sitting in 3rd. We drop back in the field now.
As we go along with Dixon, you can see him changing gears because of the egg-shaped racetrack. Very wide open turns 1 and 2, very tight in 3 and 4.
That's Hornish up ahead. Looks like the back end's trying to step out on that car.
That's when the car is loose, as the drivers call it. The back end wants to swap ends. Remember, Sam had that problem in Phoenix, and the car spun around him in turns 1 and 2. Said that he was pushing the car too much in practice here the other day when he crashed and hit the turn 4 wall. Now
we ride with Scott Dixon. Here comes Greg Ray back in. Jackaroo.
Paul, the damage is on the front of the car. It's one of the suspension links. He connected with Vitor Mira. They're not quite sure what the problem is, but Greg Ray, every time he gets up to 200 miles an hour, a severe vibration. Scott, you know that's not what you want when you're going around a racetrack at those speeds.
And Ray, with his problems now, despite that great start, outside of the front row, has fallen 5 laps behind the race in 19th place. More traffic. Franchitti with his teammate Weldon coming up on him. Franchitti is 10th, so Weldon's just charging through this field.
Franchitti did a nice job to help his teammate there. Just made sure he left enough space for him to get through underneath to sort of make sure Scott Sharp wasn't going to interfere. A little bit of teamwork going on there. Here's Scott Sharp off the throttle, tells you that his car's probably not working as well as he'd like it to. Getting back on the gas just a little gingerly, a little slow. Up a gear going into the turn. This is the turn 1-2 segment here. You're a little bit further on the gas, a little harder, carrying more speed. A little bit of vibration in the steering wheel there. Back up a gear. Now watch for him to go down a gear going into the turn. Down 2. Right down the center of the apex, back on the gas, and now he'll accelerate all the way down the straightaway.
Working the 55th lap, Weldon, Kanaan, Rice, the top 3. Manning is trying to put a representation in for the Toyota contingent, currently sitting in 4th. And Matsura hangs on in 5th. Remember, the season opened up at the Tokyo Dome down in downtown Tokyo with the New York Yankees, and they picked some of their favorites.
Sam Hornish Jr.
Okay, A-Rod thinks it's Sam.
Helio Castroneves.
And Jeter's going for his teammate.
Like a dynasty.
Hornish! Oh, yeah. Hornish beats Castroneves. Yeah, well, if anybody knows anything about dynasties, it would certainly be members of the New York Yankees. But look at this, when you consider sports dynasties over the years, in 37 years that Penske's been racing, it's been a fairly remarkable record.
Paul, when we were away at break, Greg Ray team actually pushed his car back behind the wall into the garage area. We'll have to see if he's going to actually make any changes or repair to see if he can actually get the car back out on the racetrack to collect points for the championship.
Sam Hornish Jr., despite having a very good morning warm-up, has not really performed up to expectations here. Started 7th, currently sits 8th. Here's Buddy Rice. He is 3rd behind Weldon and Kanaan. Jack?
Well, Paul, if you listen closely, you can hear a foul sound coming from Buddy Rice's Honda. When I checked with Scott Remke, who calls the shots for Rice in the Argent Mortgage car, and he said, yeah, it really sounds funky, but they looked at all the telemetry measuring the engine performance, and it's all A-OK.
Well, that's what their telemetry might say, Jack. Mine is showing me that Weldon and Kanaan have run the last couple laps at 196, 197 miles an hour, while Rice has been there at 194. We'll watch the clock on this lap. Again, 194, 194.9.
Sometimes what that sound can be is all the telemetry shows, all the functions of the engine are working correctly. Could be a broken header on the engine that causes that exhaust note change.
Foyt the 4th in again. Don't forget his problems earlier when they pulled the cowling off of the engine and got him back into the fight. But he's currently in 19th, 13 laps behind the leader of the race because of the long time spent in the pits. And speaking of the leader, there he is on cruise control. Well, Weldon may not be waiting for the Indy 500 to get even with his teammate.
Well, you remember he ran strong there last year, but tried that move underneath Sam Hornish going in through turns 3 and ended up on his roof in turns 3 and 4.
That was a spectacular move, wasn't it?
I'm sure he's going to have that in mind when he returns to Indy next month. But very strong run and very strong weekend for the whole complete Andretti Green racing team.
You see Foyt the 4th coming out there down on the inside of Tony Kanaan, currently in 2nd place. The number 11 711 car, again from the Andretti Green racing stable.
And Paul, A.J. Foyt the 4th right now, I got to tell you, when you're that far down, you're having that many problems with a car, you almost wish that something would just actually say, let's bring it in and let's either fix it or get off the racetrack. Because at 200 and 205 miles an hour, you're sometimes almost just in the way.
It's been a very frustrating, well, now over a year for A.J. Foyt the 4th. Such success in the Menards Infinity Pro Series, and then driving for his grandfather has had its problems here. Jack Arute, you've been keeping an eye on Foyt the 4th.
Well, Paul, A.J. Foyt IV has been suffering from electronic problems throughout the course of the day. I asked him before the race how difficult, as Scott was alluding to, is it to drive a car as the yellow comes out, Paul?
You can hear him slow, and the report from race control is debris. So the first yellow comes at the 78th lap with Weldon in command out in front.
Paul, there's many ways you can see the yellow. You see the lights flashing right here, and the flagman obviously using the flag. And along with the lights that are inside the car, the drivers get notification right away, along with the spotters. 4 different ways to know when there's a yellow out on the racetrack.
So as the field slows, we're still, I guess, about 10 laps early to stop. And you'd want to stretch this out if you can, but if it's debris, you wouldn't think it would be that long.
Well, that's going to be the play right now for spotters standing up top of the stands, communicating to the pits, letting them know what they see on the racetrack, and watching the service vehicles to see where they are, how many go out. It's a big game right now, and you really have to play this correctly. But the rule of thumb is if the leader is going to stop, then you follow the leader and stop with him. So we'll have to wait to see what Weldon does underneath this yellow.
Dan Weldon gets a chance to take a deep breath and relax a little for the first time today. He's led all except for the time that he went into the pits, as you look at the Yamaha lap leaders, and that was 2 laps that Scott Sharp was scored in the lead. And that 77 laps is more than Weldon's led in his entire career.
Now, Paul, if Weldon leads the 90th lap, because this is the 90th race that Firestone has had tires in the IRL, he will get a $10,000 bonus if he leads that 90th lap, and maybe something he can buy for his new home that he just got in Carmel, Indiana.
Oh, not that. He's got to throw a nice little party for all his friends in Indianapolis.
Drivers are cheap, Paul. He will throw a party.
Well, I've noticed that out of you, but I thought you were the exception.
Thank you for that.
No, you have been a very gracious guy. You bought a White Castle once.
Now, I've said about follow the leader, so the leader's going to come in and look at this pit lane. It looks like rush hour.
Everybody laid out. So this is going to come on the 80th lap. They're making 45 laps between stops. Green flag run. So at least 2 more. Maybe only one. Maybe only one if you play it right. Let's go down to Jack Arute as he watches Weldon come in.
This time, Dan Weldon will find his teammate, TK, Tony Kanaan, in front of him. But Weldon goes around Darren Manning's pit and hits the marks exactly. Kanaan ducks in as well. This will be a battle between the 2 Andretti Green teammates. 7-11 in pit 1. Starting out first, he lights it up. Almost hits the rear tire on the right side of Tony Kanaan. But a very uncharacteristically long stop for Kanaan, guys.
Yeah, Kanaan was in there for a very long time. Weldon comes out reassuming the lead. Kanaan doesn't lose a position, but Taylor and Hornish, they come up, while Dixon and Matsura and Castroneves all had slow stops. Interesting for Castroneves, huh? So Weldon, now under caution for the first time today, can breathe easy for the moment. When we come back, we'll check with what's going on in Texas.
So be sure to mark your calendars for Saturday night, June 12th, for the Bombardier 500 on ESPN. And it is the first race after the Indianapolis 500, and it always proves to be one of the best, most competitive races on the IRL schedule. And right now, I'm joined by Mr. Eddie Gossage. He is the man that made this happen. He is the president of Texas Motor Speedway. Wow, what a night. We've got great fans here. And what's happening to the local boy, though? What is up? Are you guys just disappointed in Greg Ray?
Well, we're big Greg Ray fans. He has a condo right over here in turn 2.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it started out strong, but to have a tough finish here, well, I don't know if he's finished, but to have a tough time, we hate to see it. We wanted to see him run good here.
I know everybody's still rooting for him. Hey, it's early in the race. Anything can happen, but regardless, the fans are happy. We're having a good time, and we've got a lot of racing coming up. Paul?
Jamie, it does look like you're having a great time there. Say hi to Eddie Gossage for us. Kim Green, who calls the tactical for Tony Kanaan, has been on the radio quite a bit lately. And by the way, you remember that they're 13 hours ahead of the United States East Coast, and making that trip across the Pacific is the least of their problems. They have to take everything that has to do with the race with them. And for some of the radios and that communication, you know, it's different rules, different regulations, and a bit of a problem. Jack Arute.
We'll see. We were going to ask Kim Green as they get ready to call this green flag exactly what had happened on that Tony Kanaan pit stop. I did ask him. It was a wheel nut that got locked up on the exchange of the tires. Remember, those wheel guns turn at 32,000 RPM, and it didn't cross thread, but it did lock up. We're back to green.
Dan Weldon leads him down. Get 3 wide there in the back. And the good news for Weldon is that he's got clear track ahead of him for the first time since the start of the race.
And Paul, we've been watching Taylor and noticing just during that break, good pit stops for him, and sitting 5th right now. Been very aggressive. Wasn't very happy with the first couple of races, but he's got the bit between his teeth this weekend.
Weldon, Kanaan, Rice. Cornish goes up to the high side. But he kind of gets stuck up there. Schechter's been using that high groove as well. The IRL IndyCar Series live coverage from Motegi, Japan. 3rd round of the series, final preparation before the 88th running of the Indianapolis 500 on the Memorial Day weekend. And I can't get over how much Sam Hornish in that number 6 Marlboro Team Penske car is struggling. Whoa, 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 get it down.
What a save that one is. Oh, but there's the result right there.
Not a save for Hornish, though.
No, that was a great thump there on Koski. So I suspect right now those two had contact, and that's exactly probably what happened to Hornish and up in the wall.
Yeah, but think about this. 2-time series champion Sam Hornish Jr. wins the first race he drives for Roger Penske, but since then, an accident at Phoenix, an accident in practice here, and now an accident in the race. So unlike him.
A lot's going through his mind right now. He's thinking about points. He's thinking about the momentum that they've lost going into the Indy 500. Here they are, going in the turn. Oh, there is exactly what's happening. Missouri right in there was actually carrying too much speed into there, got involved with some dirty air from the cars in front, pushed up, ended up catching the left front corner of Sam Hornish, knocked his wing off, lost downforce, and sent him up into the gray and right into the wall.
You know, Schechter and Helio Castroneves were both coming right down there, though separated by a lap. And look at how they'll have to dodge to get away from him.
Now, watch the car right there, 55, Koski Missouri, dirty air coming from the car directly in front of him right there. So he gets that dirty air. He's now pushing up in front of Sam. You can see the debris coming off of Sam's car. And Sam right now is going up into this gray. Once you get into that gray area there, there's no grip there whatsoever, and he's pushing right up into the wall.
And like you said, great save for Matsuura. You're on board now. He's probably starting to take his first breath. So caution comes out for the second time on the 90th lap of this 200-lap run. Will anybody take a chance on a stop now? Well, this is the focus of all attention right now in the IRL IndyCar Series at Twin Ring Motegi because of this incident. Now watch him carry speed into this corner as he comes up behind Dixon and alongside Hornish.
Too much speed, Paul, as you said, should be off the gas way sooner than that. He gets the dirty air from the car in front, which was Dixon's. The car pushes up right into the line of Sam Hornish Jr., knocks off Sam's wing, left front tire. Sam's car's then a three-wheeler and pushes himself right up into the wall.
A lot of damage to Roger Penske's car. Dan Weldon is still the leader. He's been the dominant force in this race under the caution now, and this cleanup will probably take a little time. Here's Dan Weldon, a very likable guy from Great Britain, now living in Indianapolis, Indiana, the United States. Let's meet him.
People say I'm a bit of a neat freak. As you can tell, I'm obviously pretty neat. I have the hangers all going the same way. The pants are all kind of hanging without creases. I even have the shoes in their original boxes. You know, I'm going to take a lot of kidding for this from Michael Andretti and Tony Kanaan.
Every time we have a chance, we mess up his stuff because he's so organized that we don't like that.
Dan has his quirks. We all do. And, you know, his is, he is a neat freak.
Us three, Tony, myself, and Brian, our mission in life is to keep him in his place.
Oh, God, I hate those guys.
And I'm going to take a large cup of hot English breakfast tea.
I think the three boys would have told you that always at dinner, they would be just about ready to go, and I do it every time because this winds them up. And they're all antsy, they're all wanting to get back to the hotel, and I'll just ask the waiter for a cup of English breakfast tea with some skim milk.
That's definitely been a subject of conversation amongst us.
It's amazing when you say you drive for Michael Andretti, people's jaws just drop. They're like, really?
From Emberton, England, Dan Weldon.
Without motorsport, I think I would be a miserable kid. That's what makes me happy. I've been doing this since I've been 4 years old, and I want to go racing longer than Michael. That's my aim. I'm not sure if I'll be able to go as long as Mario, but certainly I'd like to try. I think the biggest thing for me is that I personally do not feel like I've made IndyCars till I'm winning consistently. That's my goal.
So, let's see.
Well, still under the yellow flag, second of the day, this time for an incident involving Sam Hornish. He got in the back of Kotsuki Masura. Masura very excited about the run in front of his hometown crowd, and Scott Goodyear, I think you think that that kind of excitement does, in fact, get to a driver. But take a look, though, look at this record. But consider, after Miami this year, that record has not been nearly as good, and it was less than great here this weekend with 2 cars written up.
Well, you know, when you're going as quick as he goes, I guess you have to push it to the limit. This one obviously was not his fault, but you know, now he goes home and moves into his new home, and he's looking forward also to his wedding in the beginning of June. And I just know that he spent some time up in Chicago recently at the Hugo Boss outlet, obviously a sponsor, and had the opportunity to get a lot of touches for him and his people on the team.
Yeah, but a wedding in the Indy 500 in 7-day period. No pressure there. Green flag, back out. Weldon leads him down. Dixon working with Rice, battled for 4th.
Actually, Manning, I think that's the 10-car target, 10-car of Manning. He's been very strong. He's the top Toyota right now, sitting in 3rd.
But both the target Chip Ganassi cars are right there. Darren Manning, another one of the Brits racing in the series from North Yorkshire, England. Again, lives very close to the target Chip Ganassi headquarters and shop in Indianapolis. Jack Root, Sam Hornish, what's the story? Is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine. Let's check out if he can tell us into his recollection what happened up there in 1.
Just not enough guys using their heads out there. I mean, this is a tough race. It's hard to pass here, so guys, you really have to get a good start, good restarts, and you know, everybody's kind of jumpy, and I mean, got in there and got the front end of the car ran over, and can't turn it with one wheel.
What about the track conditions? Are they better or what?
You know, we missed on the setup by a little bit. We pushed in the first stint, made an adjustment, then we were loose. So I think we were going to be right where we were at. You know, all the Marlboro Team Penske guys worked really hard. You know, we had a good car. You know, maybe not enough to win, but we were working on it, trying to get it there.
Indy's next.
Yeah, and that, of course, is now the big focus for Sam Hornish. Weldon, Kanaan, as they pass over the halfway point. Very tight battle for the lead. Then Manning and Dixon run 3rd and 4th, the 2 target Chip Ganassi cars.
Looks like Kanaan's got maybe the better car right now after that last pit stop. He's certainly being able to chase down Weldon, being able to run behind him, which tells you that his car's working very strongly in the dirty air from the car in front. But remember, this track is different on both ends, so sometimes the car will work in turns 1 and 2, and maybe not so well in 3 and 4, so you have to play your cards right and try to take advantage where you can.
2 Hondas, then 2 Toyotas, then a Honda and a Chevrolet make up the top 6, Jack.
Well, Scott, you were talking about Tony Kanaan being a little bit quicker after that last pit stop. That is indeed correct. But according to Dan Weldon, no one can beat him. And I quote him. He says, the car has been perfect all day. You know, at the start of the race, he said he was worried about Tony Kanaan. Well, Kim Green just radioed to Tony that it was his chance to try and close. And Weldon is still running just fast enough to keep Kanaan at bay. And the Jim Beam crew is not at all concerned about TK at the moment.
In fact, last time around Weldon ran 198.8 compared to Kanaan's 198.6. That was the fastest car on the lap. But of course, Weldon is running clear of traffic right now. On board with Darren Manning, 3rd place. He's looking up ahead trying to find Kanaan. Kanaan's, well, about a straightaway ahead of him right now.
Downshifting 2 times going into that tight 3 and 4 segment. Got the car a little loose right in the middle of the turn, pushed out a little bit. So he's back on the gas.
Try this too. A report from one of the observers says the possibility that 55 car of Matsura, who's battling off and on with Helio Castroneves, may have actually gotten in contact with Castroneves. I don't think I'd want to do damage to 2 Penske cars in a single race. Roger might want to talk to me about that.
Well, especially when everybody gets on the same plane on the way home for about 14 hours, Paul. I'm not sure that's probably a good thing, but Manning's got a lot of experience. He's been over in Japan many, many times. He's raced F3 in Japan in 98 and 99, and always looks forward to coming back here.
This is what we were talking about.
Ooh.
More of an almost than a real touch.
Yeah, just that's almost like an excuse me, pardon me, I'm coming through, and that's exactly what he did.
Castroneves now has 7th. Matsura is sitting in 8th. Rice has fallen a bit off the pace at 197 flat last couple of laps. Weldon still in front. What do you think? Will he stay there? Well, it's Dan Weldon. Almost unbeatable, it seems. A full half-second ahead of his 2nd place teammate, Tony Kanaan. Though it looks closer than that now. They've picked the pace up. 197.5 miles an hour. Mile and a half, just right at a mile and a half around this place. Just think of that. Nearly 200 miles an hour, and they've had laps at above 200. Weldon was 201.1. at one point in this race.
Now, what these guys are going to have to start to think about here, I'm sure Michael Andretti's thinking about it right now, is to make sure that Honda is going to win this race. And race drivers are a rare breed. You know, you're going to forget about that when it comes down to 5 laps to go. If the guy behind you is going to be trying to pass, even if it's your teammate, these guys certainly don't want to take each other out and give Toyota a win, because right now Toyota is running 3rd and 4th.
Let's go back to Jack Arute.
Well, guys, I have a question. All of a sudden, listening to Dan Weldon, Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collectible has raised his voice a couple of octaves, questioning his crew chief several times about settings in the controls of the car. Scott, all of a sudden, could that be someone that's beginning to think that maybe he's on the verge of his first victory and starting to pucker up just a bit?
A lot of pressure, as we talk about, not only on the driver to win the race, but because even Michael Andretti said, you know, I wish that maybe I didn't win a race a few years ago driving a Ford and maybe let the Honda that was finishing 2nd win, because right now, that's all we feel right now coming here to Japan is to win this race for a Honda at their home track. And the driver feels that in the cockpit, and more pressure as the race starts to wind down, Jack.
Well, if anybody's going to ruin it for Honda, it might be this guy, Darren Manning, who is 3rd Toyota power. His teammate right behind him. The 2 Toyotas are about 3 seconds back. And don't forget, O'Reilly Spring Nationals final round coverage. Sunday, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific on ESPN2. For more information, log on to ESPN.com.
As we ride along with Manning, you can see his helmet there, that very neat green color. Interesting to note that when he lived here, his helmets were painted here, and still today, he has his helmets painted over here and then shipped back to America because he just happens to love the paintwork that the chap does for him.
Jack Arute, Michael Andretti's team's looking strong.
And right now, Michael Andretti's watching 1 versus 2. Michael, with the Honda victory so important, do you let these two guys go at it, or do you try and do some sort of modified team rules?
Well, we don't have any rules, but they're two smart guys, and they know how important this race is to us, and you know, they're not going to do anything stupid.
One of the great things that Michael has talked about, as has many of the crew members on the Jim Beam crew, is the maturity that Dan Weldon has shown in this season. He'll need all of that and more to hold off TK and the rest of this pack.
Just got around the 27 car, Alpine sponsor Dario Franchitti running 10th. And there he is. One of the 4 cars in that stable. So it's Honda, and then 2 Toyotas. Then Rice with his Honda, who has kind of settled down about 195 miles an hour. Here's Taylor in 6th place, Chevrolet power.
Now, when you think about the Panther team, you certainly would have thought that Thomas Scheckter would be the lead Chevrolet in this race, but right now, Taylor, the leading rookie in the lead Chevrolet, has raced over in this area before, raced in Macau, the street race in South Korea in F3, but had never been to this track before.
Mark Taylor, Catfish has a brand new spotter, someone that all of us are familiar with. We used to call him the gas man and work topside with us after he won a couple of Indianapolis 500s. Tom Sneva has made the trip here to Japan. I asked Tom why he would want to leave the golf course in Arizona, and he said, well, I like sushi. So he thought he'd come over here and spot for Taylor, and he's been doing the job all afternoon.
Let me think about that for a minute. Sneva's spotting me. What do you think, Scott?
I don't know. You know, Pancho Carter has been one of the best out there right now, and John Barnes and the team certainly know how to find great spotters, so maybe it works.
Well, you know, when you take a look at the famous Borg-Warner Trophy, as we look at the Yamaha lap leaders, still Dan Weldon is the story here, just like his teammate Tony Kanaan was at Phoenix. You look at the Borg-Warner Trophy, Tom Sneva's wearing a pretty thick pair of glasses and that little silver likeness that they put for each winner. I don't know. I've been with Tom in the booth a lot. I think I'd just buy him the sushi and some sake and let him go. Visor can from Scott Sharp.
Look how busy, all that information that's on the steering wheel right there. You see these lights going off on the top of the steering wheel. See a green, yellow, then red. The driver doesn't have to watch the RPMs of the engine, which is right there in the center. He gets to watch these lights start to illuminate. You see them go right there. As soon as he sees the red, he reaches down and grabs a shifter over here on the right side. You don't even have to lift your foot off the throttle. Just reach down, and the shifter has an electronic spark cut into it. You don't even have to do much work.
Delphi car looking good there, and 123 laps now complete, so we're probably getting pretty close to another opportunity to come into the pits. 43 laps since the last stop by the leader. Back with our live coverage of the IRL IndyCar Series, the Firestone Indy Japan 300 from Twin Ring Motegi, Honda's track in Japan, and Honda's running first and second right now, looking for their first win on their very own track. 6 previous races they've not been able to win. It's become a serious matter, as the Japanese call it, face for them. They want to end that streak of non-victories. Scott Dixon is 4th. His teammate is 3rd. So it's Honda, Toyota. Best Chevrolet at the moment is Mark Taylor. He's in 6th and was 3rd quick at 195.2 miles an hour last time around. Catherine Evans just behind him. But the key guy has been Weldon all the way. Get a glimpse there of the number 5 car of Adrian Fernandez. When Kart raced here, he won twice. Hoisted that trophy. not just the trophy. The Japanese are very well known for taking particularly great care of the winner with gifts here. Adrian now his second race in the Indy Racing League. Currently 13th, a lap behind the lead. Got Schechter all over the back end of his car. And that battle with Schechter is a battle for position. Castroneves, who just got around Rice, as Rice headed down into the pits. Rice in on the 131st lap. Report is that Tony Kanaan is also coming in. I guess you don't want to take any chances with it. I would think this is a lap or two early certainly for Tony Kanaan, but at least they're going to get the pit cleared out for Weldon to come through as the leader, and then it should be just one more stop. Jackaroo?
And that, Paul Page, is exactly the decision that the 7-Eleven crew has made. Tony Kanaan will be the first to pit because he is the chaser. They'll leave the chasing to the next lap. A problem again with the wheel nut on the right rear. He is off and away, and in a football field a second, that delay probably cost him 200 yards.
So that clears everything for Weldon to come in. Manning and Dixon moved to second and third. Taylor to fourth. With the stop by Kanaan. Target fast lap of the race, 201 miles an hour. Fourth lap, we've mentioned it several times. I'll tell you what, just think about that. Full load of fuel, fresh start, and he turns at 201. He's serious.
And what they call a green track, Paul, because usually the track sat overnight. I think there was a little sprinkle last night, and so the end result is we got a green racetrack.
Weldon now handling traffic. Scott Sharp, defending race champion there. Talk about the width of this track, Scott. 80 feet, widest in the series. But the grooves seem to be fairly singular, and we've seen Schechter. We saw Hornets run a little high. But is this track, do you think, going to get wider between now and the finish?
Well, these guys have been pushing it up a little wider on the entry and on the exit. But remember, you're trying to keep the fastest line possible, so the easiest way to do that is go long and high on the outside going in and hit the center apex. And there's Foyt obviously slowing down on the backstretch. Is that electrical problem he had before, which they thought was related to the fuel pump, or did he maybe just run out of gas?
Well, one of the observers is suggesting that it may just be a fuel issue. Foyt to fourth, not that far though. Only 18 laps since he was last in, so you wouldn't think that'd be it. Mark Taylor comes out of fourth and into the pits.
Must be happy with that car. There was no changes on the car. Didn't seem like any wing changes.
And now we watch for the leader. And for Scott Dixon. Dixon is on the pit road. Foyt to fourth goes into the pits. That should be more than routine.
60 miles an hour down that pit lane. Seems like an eternity. No changes again for Dixon, just 4 Firestone Firehawk tires.
It goes well. And here comes the leader. So Manning picks up the lead on the 138th lap.
This stop so very important for the chasee. The leader, Dan Weldon, taking on the 30th. Lights the tires. He is off and away. It was a nice job by Dan Weldon. By my calculations, Guy, there should be only one stop to go.
Yeah, that would seem right. Weldon comes back into the fight. Manning has yet to stop. Castroneves comes up into second place. The IRL Indycar Series. Dan Weldon, this guy right here, has been the class of the race. But Manning's got some problems, Jack.
Yeah, Darren Manning overshot his pit. He had the brakes locked up. They had to push the car back. Now he's taking on the fuel. It was extra long because the fuel nozzle could not reach where Manning stopped. They had to push him back. Costly stop for the young kid.
And since the fuel is in a large tank in the pits, and it's carefully regulated in height, angle, and hose length, you've got to start right on the dime. Now Manning, of course, picked up the lead. He's the only driver in the series to lead in all 3 races thus far this year. Castroneves is now in front. Well, at Motegi, there is a magnificent museum that up until this year has displayed only Honda racing equipment, but a magnificent collection from Tony George and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway loaned a few cars. There's Janet Guthrie's Offie-powered machine and Roger Ward's Leader Card Roadster. All the stories those cars could tell. And by the way, Roger Ward been having some health problems lately, and we wish him the best. Firestone Indy Japan 300, Motegi Japan, the Twin Ring, the Oval. Dan Weldon has been out in front most of the race, but the question now is, can he get back there? Elio Castroneves being scored as the leader on the 145th lap. Now they pick the scoring up and put Weldon up in front.
They have been dominating so far, not only this race, but also the weekend. Kanaan has been fast just about every session. Weldon is really just going to have a perfect, what we call a hat trick here, if he can pull this race win off, because he was on pole, has led the most laps of the race. And if he can pull off this win, it will be certainly a personal best for him for the weekend. But more importantly, we've talked about it many times, the win for Honda at their home track, something they've never had since the track has been built.
Jack Arute.
Guys, how important is it to have a teammate? Well, if you're Dan Weldon, it was very important. When he hit the ground in practice, he said he couldn't catch the car and drive it even to the pit area. It was so bad. After the first practice session, he huddled with Tony Kanaan, and the Andretti Green team went to work. He took Kanaan's setup on the final practice before qualifying, and you saw the end result was a pole position. The setup today, well, they wouldn't tell me whether it was Kanaan's or Weldon's. Let's just call it an Andretti Green setup.
And Jack Weldon was very complimentary of giving credit to his engineer, Eddie Jones, because he said he was the guy that gave him the magic to make this car go fast.
Second place, Kanaan. Hot off that dominating win at Phoenix and trying to chase down his teammate. One more stop before the end of this 200-lap run, 300 miles. Looking for Dixon, there he is. But he's got some room to make up, some back markers to get through. And remember, he has a broken bone, one of that myriad of bones that's in your foot from his accident here in his left foot. And again, while the track is smooth, the vibration in the car can't be helping him.
Certainly noticeable, but thankfully for him, it's on his left foot, a foot that does not get used very often here, because once you leave the pit lane and you're rolling, you no longer use the clutch to change gears in these cars. So his right foot's doing all the work right now, probably pushing down the throttle and touching the brake in the turns.
Moving now into the final quarter of the race. A good view of Schechter there, currently 11th. A bright yellow Pennzoil Panther car.
A quiet weekend for him. You would expect with the team, the Panther Racing team and that machine, Andy Brown's the engineer, and his talent, he'd be a lot more competitive.
Thomas Schechter, incredibly fit. His father, of course, Jody, a former world driving champion, 7th in the series last year. And his team saying about him, wow, they're really shocked at how bright he is and how he figures stuff out with his car. Learned how to drive the ovals of the Indycar series on a video game, though, before he came to the series. Paid off for him.
So dominant, the video games today, you know, when I started doing that, Paul, there wasn't any video games out with motor racing on them.
Yeah, a motor racing video game for you was like a wooden block with wheels, wasn't it?
Well, thank you.
Weldon, Kanaan, Dixon, top 3, and Dixon's a good 6 seconds behind the leader. But still with one more stop to go, and so far only 2 cautions in this race. First for debris, and then the crash with Hornish. Hornish, by the way, okay. Fernandez slows on the front stretch. Wonder if he, hope he didn't leave any oil or anything down when that happened. We don't know what the problem was.
Just 11 laps since his last pit, so you can't think it's a fuel issue. Coasting on the apron right now. Anytime you have a car problem, you want to get below that white line that he is just to his right. Off the racing line. If there is any oil or liquids coming off the car, that's exactly where you want to be.
So we'll keep track of Adrian Fernandez, a two-time winner on this circuit. Weldon, Kanaan, Dixon, Honda, Toyota. Honda may be about to break the curse.
Well, it's just after midnight, and we are live at Texas Motor Speedway. And Scott, being, you know, the analyst that you are, the former driver, you're the expert. So, well, we've got a lot of people that want to ask you some questions, so hopefully you can answer them. I've got faith in you. We've got this lucky gentleman right here. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Stu Moorhead, and I'm from Denton, Texas.
And what's your question?
Scott, my question is, since this is the last race for the current engine package, can you talk a little bit about the new engine package and how it's going to perform on a high-bank, high-speed track like here at Texas?
Well, you know, interestingly enough, I don't think that they're going to lose a whole lot of speed because they expect that with a half a liter and a smaller engine, I would think that you would end up losing about 100 horsepower. Right now, we're watching Thomas Schechter's car being pushed back, my old Panther Racing mount, and I think they had some gearbox problems, maybe telling us a little bit why he wasn't up to speed. But the engine package will start with a 3-liter at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They already have figured, the engineers, that they've already gained maybe 15 horsepower back from the 100 that they lost. So,
well, they had a pretty good test.
They had a great test. They're trying to slow speeds down.
Definitely going to make things interesting at the Indy 500. We have one more quick question for you, Scott.
Scott, you're a record holder here at Texas Motor Speedway. What was your favorite race?
Well, certainly Texas is one of them, because wherever you win becomes your favorite racetrack, let me tell you that. So with 2 wins there, certainly. But you know, the high bank racetrack, Eddie Gossage as a promoter, and all the fans at Texas Motor Speedway, the greatest racetrack there is, I believe.
Thanks so much, Scott. We appreciate it. We're going to keep the party rolling here, and we'll see you guys at the end of the race.
It looks like you're having a great time at Texas Motor Speedway. Dan Weldon is still the leader. Back in the field, here's Roger Yasukawa, currently in 14th. Matsura is currently in 8th, and Adrian Fernandez out of the car. And we're not sure what happened here. Jack Arute, do you know?
Well, the marriage with the IRL and Adrian Fernandez and Telmex Quaker State, rocky in the first 2 races. What happened?
We lost drive somehow. We were coming out of 4, and the car was not ready. The engine is good. The Honda engine was great all weekend, but you know, something happened on the gearbox, but it wasn't on the shifting like in Phoenix. This was something else.
Adrian, how difficult is this package to adapt to?
Well, like everything else, something new is always difficult. But at least I managed to get some laps, understand about the racing here and everything else. So it was a good experience, even though we didn't finish. So we should be strong and strong in every race.
Good luck down the road.
Adrian Fernandez out. Now he can look forward to the Indy 500. We were talking about the test of the new engine, the 3-liter engine at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They also tested some aero packages that they're putting on the cars to help safety.
Well, right now you see that center wicker, the black wicker that's just going right down the straight middle of the car right there. Something that the IRL came up with all the way from the front to the rear of the car to hopefully stop the car from turning over if it's to go sideways. It worked quite well. Speeds are down around the 218, 220 mile an hour mark, exactly where Brian Barnhart wanted the cars to run this year. Whoa, this is a problem. This is not good.
Oh, and that's the wall.
That is the wall. Up in the gray, no grip on that dirty gray area, and the end of a great run for Mark Taylor.
Yeah, he was running 7th, the highest placed Chevrolet, and that thing just doesn't want to get away from the wall now.
Well, he's actually still got his foot on the gas. I think he thinks he wants to drive that thing in, but it's best just to sort of park it, and pretty soon the spotter will be telling him just to pull it off to the side.
At this point, I mean, there's obviously no brakes. You're just trying to keep it against the wall so it didn't get down in traffic.
You absolutely don't want to be down in traffic. See, the brakes worked right there. I think he thought that maybe it wasn't too bad. Drivers never give up, so I think he was thinking that he might have been able to drive in the pit lane and actually make some repairs. But with an impact like that, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah, but in the cockpit, how much of that damage do you know is really out there other than what you felt?
You know, when you're new to this, you always think that it can be repaired, but as you get a little older, a little wiser, you realize that it's not going to work.
You can tell by the noise.
You can tell by the noise and the impact. Remember, these guys are seeing anywhere from 50 to 75 Gs when they have an accident. I mean, Tora Takagi the other day, 67.8 Gs upon impact. I mean, that's huge. And anytime you get up in that, it just really destroys the car, and that's when you start to do damage to the driver.
Delphi safety team brought all their equipment over, and they're on top of this one as they were on Sam Hornish's accident.
See, he's already high on the outside of that black groove line, probably just trying to go around the car in front, and as soon as you get on that gray portion that you see and you have no grip there whatsoever, you've lost grip on all four wheels and you're just going for a ride towards the wall.
So Mark Taylor has climbed out of the car. He therefore is apparently okay, though he'll have to go in for a cursory check at the hospital. And final stops, are they going to come up now? One more look at this. Takagi came running down on Takagi pretty hard.
Yeah, very close there, you know. He probably just tried to make sure he didn't have contact with Takagi. Just not 2 lanes wide. The groove is not wide enough for both cars, and he doesn't look very happy, but that's 2 Panther Racing cars out at the same time here in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, whenever a driver looks back over his shoulder like that, you know he's looking for somebody. Scott Dixon, Jack, may have a problem.
The report, gentlemen, is that Scott Dixon has no brakes or very little brake. He hits the pedal and doesn't feel anything. The crew is prepared for the pit stop. It's a good thing that it's under yellow. It's a better thing it's only 60 miles an hour. We'll see if 6 to 8 crewmen can bring a car to a stop on the marks without brakes.
Well, and Jackaroo, what do you think with this? I would think this caution period would be the time I'd make my last stop of the day.
Oh, absolutely. They are well within the window. This will be the last stop. The thing that is critical right now for all of these guys is not to make a mistake. Sometimes your mind can wander when it's not a green flag pit stop. You're not quite as focused. This will be the telling time now as all the leaders pull onto pit road, led by Dan Weldon. Weldon will be the first to hit his marks. Meanwhile, Dixon tries to stop. He gets in, as does Manning. Kanan is running. Meeting time at the zoo, and the Lion is out first.
Oh, yeah, Weldon roared in and out. Castroneves, who had a good stop last time, but boy, Weldon just roared in and out of there. Pace car, Johnny Rutherford, the driver, stopped on the track waiting for the whole field to come out now and line up under the caution.
Guys, this is going to be a sprint to the end, because by the time we get the track cleaned up, probably somewhere around maybe just over 20 laps towards the end of the race, we got a report of maybe a wheel going through the infield sometime. So if that's the case, and there it is.
You picked a fine time to leave me loose, wheel.
Well, you know something?
You like country. You like country music.
Well, you know, 51 is this. If this is the situation, Barron's going to have 3 wheels, and as we saw Sam happen earlier, cars don't work that well with only 3 wheels on it.
It's pretty hard to hide it, too, when you've done it. It's off Alex Barron's car. And it makes, you know, in the pits, there's only, you know exactly who changed that wheel, and you can imagine how they feel when they know the car's coming back in. You're going to have to put another one on. And, of course, the other pit crew guys they're famous for not giving you any quarter whatsoever. Weldon leads under caution. Sprint to the finish coming. Join us. So the final stops have now occurred. Scott Goodyear suggested it is going to be a sprint to the finish, assuming there are no other cautions. Dan Weldon is the leader. Elio Castroneves and Penske Racing, there's Vitor Mira. He's out of competition as well, finishing about 8 laps behind the leader when he finally climbed out of the car. Currently scored in 17th, and he'll probably ratchet down a little bit more before the end of the day. But Elio Castroneves and Roger Penske's team took a gamble, didn't change tires in the last stop, just refuel. He's sitting in second. The tires, those Firestone Firehawks, are working for him. He might be able to mount a challenge. Weldon has led 167. Castroneves, Manning Sharp also led. And remember last year, Honda thought they had it going right up until the finish, and then Scott Sharp just snatched it away at the last minute.
Well, Paul, the reason for not changing tires to allow for a quicker pit stop to get him out in front of the cars that he maybe came in behind when he entered pit lane. But the interesting story I see right now, the first 6 cars are a Honda, Toyota, Honda, Toyota, Honda, Toyota power. The top Chevy with Taylor is now out from that last crash. So it's going to become a very interesting sprint to the finish.
Yeah, you think it's not tight in the corporate suites of both Honda and Toyota? Jack Arute.
The last advice to Dan Weldon, guy, it comes down to this start. You've got to beat Castroneves.
Now
Tall order.
There's a go zone down in turn 3 and 4, an area where the drivers are allowed to accelerate any earlier than that, and you can be assessed a penalty.
Leader gets to bring him back at his pace. Green flag is out. Kanaan works down to the inside of Castroneves. Kanaan goes for second. Now Weldon has somebody who can protect him. Weldon pulls away in the lead.
Not the best restart for Castroneves. He saw him running that low line, trying to block Kanaan going down the front stretch, but just could not make the car wide enough.
Manning, Rice, Dixon just behind this battle for the lead. Weldon pulls away. That was just such a good move by Kanaan. And then Michael Andretti says, no, we don't have any rules. There's no team strategy.
I can assure you that Kanaan heard that on his radio from his spotter and maybe even from Michael Andretti. You know the job you have to do. You have to get up to second. You have to be a buffer.
So Weldon has pulled out almost a full second right away. Mark Taylor involved in that incident now with Jack Arute.
Mark, first of all, you're okay. What happened?
Yeah, I'm fine. We had a great car. The Menards John Manville car was great today. Panther have done a great job all weekend, giving me a great car, and we've been working to make sure the track was as best as possible. And it was just with the wind picking up as it is, it's a bit treacherous on that outside line, and when you've got someone dive down the inside of you like that into one, you're screwed really, because you've got nowhere to go and you go in that dirt and you just can't turn and you just hit the wall. And it's unfortunate. We were right up there. We were going to get a great result, and unfortunately it ended early for us.
And guys, it should be pointed out the wind has kicked up considerably, double what it was when they dropped the green. The direction, it's going right down your nose when you go down the backstretch. So it's the opposite of Thursday. Now you got a tailwind going into turn 1.
Of course, when that wind kicked up during the Thursday practice this week, it also kicked quite a bit of dust onto the track, and some people say that might have been part of the problem that they had that caused those 4 different accidents between 3 and 4. So Dan Weldon now with 182 laps being worked. Tony Kanaan sitting back there, and not really sitting, he's nibbling away at Weldon. Weldon, of course, made his debut here 1 year ago. What a way to celebrate that anniversary. What a way to get even with that guy in second place if you can win it, because the rest of the 3 guys on the team, Kanaan, Herta, Franchitti, every chance they get, they're pulling some sort of practical joke on Dan Weldon.
Well, like they say, paybacks, Paul, and this is certainly a payback that would be one that Weldon would certainly like. And I'm watching the cars, and it seems like Weldon works very well in 1 and 2, and maybe Kanaan works a little bit better in 3 and 4, but you have to remember one thing. It's one thing to catch up to the car in front, and it's another thing to pass, even on a high bank track where you have multiple lanes. Here, it's a little bit more difficult. You enter high, you go low in the center of the turn, and you run a high line going off to keep your speed up. Very difficult to get past the car in front.
And we were just going to show you where the Andretti Green drivers were, and here is one, Brian Herta, with something going wrong back in the engine room.
Now, this may not bring out the yellow, Paul, because he is down below the racing line. He's down below that white line on the racetrack. and if there is any fluids coming out of the car, they are off the racing line.
Yeah, but they really have to take a look on the backstretch and make sure that whatever it is, and it looks more like water than oil because it's a lighter color, that none of it got on the racetrack. But now we've run a full lap since this has happened and everything seems safe. So now Andretti Green Racing with just 3 cars, and 2 of them running first and second. Franchitti is 7. Weldon and Kanaan both running laps above 199 miles an hour. Fastest 2 cars in the race, Jackaroot.
And Paul, you were alluding to the practical jokes back and forth. Well, Dan Weldon tried one on Tony Kanaan earlier this weekend. He went out and he bought a giant rubber nose and he added little feet to it, a wind-up toy. And when Kanaan was doing an interview with Japanese TV, he let the wind-up nose go into the shot. Kanaan just looked and said, "Remember, I'll get even."
Yeah, I'm not going to touch that. I promised TK no nose jokes for at least 5 years. But you, on the other hand, could do hair jokes there, Jack. Oh, silence from across the ocean. Working 188. Coming to the final 10. Weldon had Kanaan about 0.8 of a second behind him, and now it's 0.9.
Now Weldon is just 25 years old, and he's sort of new to the Honda team and new to the Andretti Green team, but Kanaan has been racing for Honda for years, and he said he felt the pressure coming here probably more than just about any of them. Between him and Dario Franchitti in the 27 car that you see up ahead, both these guys felt a lot of pressure to come here and win for Honda.
And Manning is trying to put Franchitti a second lap down. Manning is currently 4th. His next closest actual competitor on the circuit is Castro Neves. You got a glimpse of the 55 car of Matsura a moment ago, currently running in 8th. And 8th is the highest that any Japanese driver has done. There he is right now in races at Motegi, done twice before by Tora Takagi. Well, it's still very early in the season to think much about the points battle, though it's on the minds of every competitor here today. When you came in to this event as a result of his place at Miami and then his win at Phoenix, Kanaan took the points lead. But if Weldon stays where he is, then the points lead's going to change again.
This is 2 years in a row that Kanaan has come to this race leading the points, and be 2 years in a row that he's going to leave and not have the points lead when he leads. So maybe he's not going to like Japan.
Well, now moving to the final 8 laps. Honda's got to be feeling pretty comfortable now. Honda-powered cars first and second in this, the last race for the 3.5-liter engine. Down to 3 liters for the 88th running of the Indy 500.
I love this shot. Just shows how busy the driver is inside the cockpit, inside the office, as we like to call it. See all the information there on the Delphi wheel. Moves his hand around a little bit. You see the information in the dials. Fuel trim. They have toggle switches to do weight jacker. All the electronic information that's there. Water temperature, oil pressure. Thumbs just slightly over the grip right in the middle.
It's a different position than you see a lot of guys using now.
Well, a lot of guys hold the wheel just a little bit different. It's really preference. You see the right hand always working the gear shifter here. He's doing a great job running behind the car in front that gives all that dirty air off. It looks like it's probably 55 of Kosuke Masura. Pretty busy inside the car. A lot of people think you don't do a whole lot, Paul, because you're just sitting down, but you're sitting inside that cockpit at 130 degrees Fahrenheit usually with all that hot stuff around you, and you're working pretty diligently.
Sharp is in a fight for 8th place with the 55 car of Matsura just ahead of him. Weldon has a full second on second place Tony Kanaan. 5 to go, a little less than that now. Honda, Toyota. highest placed Chevrolet is now Alex Barron, and he's 12th.
You know, I know Michael Andretti said that there's no team orders, but if Tony Kanaan was to get anywhere close, I would have to think that Michael would be on the radio and say, guys, why don't we just leave it as it is right now and get the job done for Honda.
Yeah, wouldn't it be something if the two of them ended up battling with each other and taking each other out? No, I wouldn't want to be around to hear that argument.
Like we said, a long plane ride home when everybody gets on the charter to come back across the ocean.
Well, and it's happened. The predecessor of this team was Green Racing, Team Green, and they had more than one occasion in which their teammates got together.
Right now, it looks like Weldon is untouchable. He's done such a great job. Like we said, 25 years old, not a whole lot of IndyCar experience, but being able to run at high-speed ovals over 200 miles an hour, the concentration level is probably one of the toughest things he has to learn, more than being able to be physically fit. To be able to run these speeds for 200 laps, 300 miles, no errors in pit stops, that's the tough job here today.
90th race in the history of the Indy Racing League IndyCar Series. This may be the first win by an Englishman in the series. Dan Weldon and Honda looking for back-to-back wins for the first time in the Indy Racing League. Just a mile and a half to go for Dan Weldon. 22nd time in the history of the league, if he can just make it around this last lap, that a driver has won from the pole. Last guy to do it was DeFerrin at Texas just last year in the final race of his career. Dan Weldon. They don't come any more likable, and now he's notched his first victory. Dan Weldon takes the win. Kanaan second. Helio Castroneves takes third, followed closely by Darren Manning, who finishes in fourth. Crowd's loving it. Honda, Toyota.
You know, Tony Kanaan said that if he was to win or somebody from his team was to win, they would actually probably have to stand in the Honda Museum for the next week and sign autographs. But I'm going to expect that there's probably going to be a statue of Danny Weldon outside the Honda Museum just for this win.
Oh, Andretti Green Racing, look how excited and happy they are about that one.
Listen to the crowd.
Now, psychologically, that really sets you up for Indy, doesn't it?
Looking strong, looking tough.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't know his work has just begun in the PR trail, though, Paul.
Well, he's got one of the neat things about Twin Ring Motegi and the Japanese in their racing is he's got about an hour and a half of ceremonies to go through now. They really celebrate their victories here.
So you're saying he might miss the charter on the way home?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody wants to get back. Well, Tony Kanaan's going to celebrate for Weldon.
He's celebrating for Honda, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, he doesn't have to pay for those tires, does he? Look at that. That is actually great car control.
Don't you just love this crowd?
Listen to them still.
So Honda has now scored with Weldon and Kanaan their first ever 1-2 finish, and did it at the Twin Ring. For 6 years they tried to win here at their own track, and finally they have done it in grand style. Dan Weldon takes his first win, and Weldon Kanaan pulling away from Castroneves and Manning at the finish.
Paul, you talked about the gifts that everybody gets for winning this race, and Scott Sharp did it last year. I think he ended up with somewhere just under a $5,000 shipping and customs bill just to get everything back across the ocean.
All of the toys. Oh, yeah. So Dan Weldon wins for Klein Tools, Jim Beam, Andretti Green Racing. His very first race, the first for a Brit in the IRL. When we come back, Jack Arute will be right there. Winner.
And the guy that is congratulating him right now has been well behind the Honda efforts. And Dan Weldon, we're going to talk about this being your first victory in a moment. But how important is this victory for your power plant and Andretti Green Racing? Honda finally victorious at the track they own and maintain.
Yeah, I think that's awesome for Honda. His water-son from Honda.
Thank you very much.
They worked so hard for this, and they deserve it. And the team did a fantastic job. Andretti Green Racing, the Klein Tools Jim Beam car was excellent. My boys were awesome, and the Firestones, the last set, I mean, they stuck, because if you can beat Kanaan around this place, you're doing okay. So it's fantastic. Like I say, for Honda, they worked really hard for this, and I think they deserve it more than any other engine manufacturer in the world. But the Japanese fans are awesome too.
And one of the things that you alluded to in the pre-race with us was the fact that TK, your teammate, Tony Kanaan, was going to be your worst nightmare all night, all day. Was he?
Yeah, he's always my worst nightmare. He plays too many jokes on me. But he's an awesome racing driver, as are Dario and Brian. I have 3 teammates that I honestly think you could put them in any championship in the world and they'd run up the front, whether it have 3 wheels, 4 wheels, 2 wheels, whatever. So it's awesome. It's awesome for the guys.
Let's talk for a moment about the conversation that you had with Tony Kanaan after you brought this Jim Beam Klein Tool car to a stop here. What did Tony have to say to you?
He was just shouting, which is what he normally does. So, no, like we have a special bond in this team. It's amazing, actually, and I just love being part of this, but it's fantastic to win my first RL race here for Honda.
In 12 months, you have gone from a rookie now to the points leader in the Indy Racing League's IndyCar Series, going into the biggest race of the year, the 88th running of the Indianapolis 500. Can you do the double?
It's with this team and with this engine behind me and the Firestones, I think anything's possible. But I mean, you can't get too excited. This series is so competitive that I mean, Indy's going to be very, very difficult.
But he will be up to the task. And one of the things, Paul, the trophy here that is given at Twin Wing Motegi, it is a replica of the famed Borg Warner trophy. So Dan Weldon's visage will now go on this sterling silver trophy. He'd like to add one in the end of May.
And what's he saying there, that he can finally pay for that necklace? Look at that trophy in the background, too. Well, the crowd loved it. Honda's victory. All of their IRL wins have come out of Andretti Green Racing. And there are your point standings, with Weldon now showing 6 points over second place Tony Kanaan in the Firestone point standings. Kanaan, Herta. Kanaan with 4 wins, Weldon with 1, and Herta with 2. Those are the Honda wins with Andretti Green Racing. We'll be back with more. Tony Kanaan, the stat actually shows him as 1.4 seconds behind, but he was right there, Jack.
And Helio Castroneves is finishing in 3rd. And Helio, you had what had to be the wildest day in Japan ever. Tell me a little bit about it.
I tell you, all the other side of the world, I had everything. I stole it, I come back, I went last, lap down, whatever. I saw this guy in my mirror to let me down. So, again, it's one of those things. But the team, our team Penske, did a phenomenal job, finished the strategy. And, hey, I'm happy. We're still there on the points.
Yeah, and the last call on that last pit stop, what does it say about the Firestone tires when you can elect to do a fuel and go?
Guys, I tell you, unbelievable. I don't know how held it, but held it. You know, on the last few laps on the court, the car started moving. I was like, please, just 2 more laps. And incredible. Thanks, and thanks for Firestone, thanks for Toyota, because they did also. I over-revved so many times, man. So I was like trying to go fast, but thank God I finished.
But it was Honda that swept it 1-2, Tony Kanaan. What kind of day did you have? It looked to me as if maybe the car was just a little bit off chassis-wise.
Well, what happened was we lost a gurney. We have a gurney on the under trail, and I lost a right rear gurney, and that's like 80 pounds of downforce. And I knew right there that I wasn't going to be able to win, so I told the team, guys, let's do our best. I had to pit it because of that, my car was handling really bad, so I came in early, made an adjustment, and you know, I'm happy with 2nd. I mean, Honda tried to win this race so much. I said, hey, Dan deserved it. He led the most laps. He had the strong car. The whole Andretti Green team did a great job.
And let's talk quickly, very quickly, that move on the restart when you wanted to get by your Brazilian friend here, Helio Castroneves. How important was that to the victory for Dan Weldon?
Wow, I mean, I told the guys in the radio, I said, boys, tell the rookie it's his day, and I'll protect him as much as I can. So I had to try to pass Helio and not hold him up because Dan was really strong. I don't think either of us could pass him.
Tony's been very kind. Tony's been teaching. Enough, enough.
I mean,
enough.
that's enough. I've been teaching him, but that's enough.
Leading the championship. You're second and third.
We're going to let them continue with this, guys, because it's breaking out in Portuguese now, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, those two guys have been racing each other since they were little boys. But Dan Weldon's the guy that's going to do the celebrating right now, as well as Honda. Honda finishes first and second. Weldon and Kanaan, Castroneves third. When we come back, we'll go back to Texas Motor Speedway, see what Jamie Little and the gang are doing. Dan Weldon joined his lap of victory, and Honda is now the dominant power in the IRL IndyCar Series. They led 191 of 200 laps at Phoenix, 192 at the Twin Ring Motegi, with Dan Weldon taking the win. John Miller, Joe Morgan, ready to power up coverage of the Athletics and the Angels. 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. Sunday night baseball on ESPN. Coverage begins with the day's Major League highlights on Baseball Tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Let's send you back to Texas and Texas Motor Speedway and Jamie Little.
All right, Paul, what a fun night it's been at Texas Motor Speedway, as you mentioned. I think everybody agrees with me, but you know, it wouldn't have been made possible without this man right here, Eddie Gossage. Eddie, I know you guys have a big race coming up June 12th. What are we going to see?
You're going to see about 100,000 people out here. We've had a lot of fun tonight, but nothing like the fun we're going to have June 12th at America's original nighttime IndyCar race, Bombardier 500.
All right, you can watch it on ESPN. Don't forget to check out round 14 of the THQ AMA Supercross Series coming up here this Sunday on ESPN2, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll be there, and guys, it's been a great time. Always good working with you, and we'll see you at the Indy 500.
Yeah, how do you get all those great assignments, Jamie? Thanks, Eddie Forrest. It's a great time, and he's right. That nighttime race at Texas is something to behold. Let's look at the full field rundown, and remember, this is unofficial. Scott Goodyear, interesting fact, Manning finished 6th at Homestead, 5th at Phoenix, 4th now in Motegi.
But he doesn't want to hear that, Paul, because that means he's going for 3rd at Indy.
So there they are, unofficial results. 6 cars on the lead lap. But of course, long runs, only 3 caution periods, long runs of green flag, and a short track.
I think that's probably what caught Buddy Rice out, because he was certainly competitive until that last long green run.
And Kosuke Masura finished as an 8th, and that ties the 2 8th place finishes by Tora Takagi for the highest place Japanese in front of their home crowd. Some interesting outs as well. You would have thought that Greg Ray, for example, would have done much better starting on the front row and having problems, and then Hornish into the wall yet again. What's going on there?
Some things you would not think of and you wouldn't actually be able to predict, but you have to say that Penske's going to rebound. Sam Hornish is going to be rebounding for the Indy 500, and that was one of the reasons that he wanted to make the change from Panther over to Penske Racing, is simply because he wants to win the Indy 500. Obviously, he's won the IRL championship twice. Greg Ray, on the other hand, you have to look at and go, one of the smallest teams that they have, but he has to have a lot of confidence going to Indy because they've run so strong here at Motegi.
Now, this is the last race, Scott Goodyear, for the 3.5-liter engine, but that doesn't mean that all those engines get thrown away, because the way they figured it out, they can just sleeve the engine and change the crank, right?
Actually, it's very easily done, just a change on pistons, rods, and connecting, or the crankshaft itself, actually. So it's not a huge cost to the manufacturers or teams, because the IRLs did not want to impose that on the manufacturers or the race teams themselves. So,
and the interesting little safety thing on that centerline wicker to help the car when it gets sideways and spoil wind coming over the car and keep it from getting in the air. Well, it started today a couple hours ago with Dan Weldon on the pole after a very painful practice session with 4 different crashes. Dixon, who broke a little bone in his foot but still raced. Schechter. Takagi, big hit, and he never really came back today. Finished 10th, but mostly through attrition. On the green flag, Weldon was, thanks a lot, I'm gone. And then Sam Hornish running into the back of another car and then up into the wall. Mark Taylor, after this restart, got himself in trouble. Weldon still the dominant power. And then checkered flag. First time for Honda at their home track. First time ever for Dan Weldon in his IndyCar Series career. So Jack Arute, neat day at the Twin Ring Motegi. Ceremonies underway.
Indeed they are, Paul, and we have just witnessed the final left turn before the month of May. They don't call them Indy cars for nothing. It is all about the 88th running of the Indianapolis 500. And for Honda, they've shown that they have the muscle with 3.5 liters. It remains to be seen, however, do they have it with a 3-liter engine? Toyota and Chevrolet also in there, as you alluded to, the drivers that want it desperately. But if you're a gambling man right now, you've got to look at the Andretti Green stable and say, most likely, the Indy 500 champion could very well come from his 4-team operation.
Well, Jack Arute, have a cup of sake for me and come on home. Dan Weldon celebrates his victory, and this will go on for some time. They have some great stuff that they give him, and you can imagine with him scoring that victory for Honda, he may even get a little extra check, do you think?
Never know, might find himself a new automobile, Paul.
Very possible. He has a new house on the north side of Indy. This is going to go a lot to the payment on that one. Well, don't forget, we have 31 and a half hours of coverage at Indy between ABC and ESPN, including Sports Center, time trials, the 500 Festal Parade, and then, of course, the 88th running, the Indy 500. It all kicks off with a countdown to Indy Special May 1st on ESPN2. For Jack Arute, Jamie Little, and all of her rowdy friends, and, of course, Scott Goodyear, I'm Paul Page. Indy 500, here we come.
3 weeks ago, Menards Infinity Pro Series rookie Phil Giebler showed he'll be a force to be reckoned